champions.
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup.
For the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
What is up? What is going on? This is episode 89.
89?
89 of Drunk on Broad. And today, with the illustrious victory yesterday afternoon, we are drunk on the Fightins this morning.
We're drunk on Duncan.
Yeah.
We sponsored?
Well, speaking of sponsorships, Chip, I don't know if you saw the new news, but shout out to our new sponsor, Von C Brewing, with their local to Monaco, Norristown related location in right off of Sturgis Street in Norristown. So we're a partner with them. We're gonna hopefully use them as the tasting room as a venue for some live shows. Just excited to kind of partner with someone who's into the grassroots effort and get that train moving. So shout out to them. Shout out to our other sponsors scrolling across the bottom here. Find them in our link tree. But today,
Hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby.
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the Fightins here. The Fightins. Said.
listen, Uncle Jack worked overtime yesterday. He was all over the news.
He was.
It was great. I love Uncle Jack. It felt a little forced, but at the same time, it was nice to finally see him get some credit. he needs a new NIL deal.
Rather than just using him nonstop for being like the entire Philadelphia fan base and having no clue who he is.
Right. Well, he is Uncle Jack. You can find him in our merch store if you're interested in that. We can send out that link later today. But listen, I think we were all happy to be able to come home from Atlanta with a split.
Yeah. Well, that was everything.
Right. You flip home field advantage, right? So now they come home, and I have to tell you, Chip, the only time that I've ever seen environments like that is at the link. That was bonkers. That was 11 years in the making, but that place was on fire yesterday. Well,
And one of the biggest things that I heard as a complaint as the season was going on is, we're not filling up the stands. We're not letting our team down. All of a sudden, everyone's going to come out of the woodwork. Baseball is a very long season, right? It starts in March. They go down in like February. They do the spring training. It's 162 games. Baseball is a long game. And besides that, it's played at all hours of the night. It's played all over the place in all temperatures. It's the only sport that hits every single season. And so, and we're used to a Philadelphia Phillies September collapse. So I can understand the fan base being hesitant. But when you are ready and in the playoffs, it's a different environment, and you saw it. And what was crazy is you saw those first two games in Atlanta, and they didn't even sell the damn thing out. No. You could still buy tickets for like $12, $13 for a playoff game in Atlanta. And I read somewhere someone was like, well, the traffic in the South is really bad. I'm like, you're letting the traffic stop you from going to a Phillies game from a playoff game? That place was sold out.
I saw the coolest video. I saw a video from a hotel in Jersey that was a couple miles away, and you could hear the stadium from miles away, which is just incredible. It's incredible to have that feel good moment and be finally starting to see this city as a sports city start to turn the page, which is just a good feeling because the team. And listen, we've discussed this many a times, right? The the Phillies franchise was not good for a
No,
long time, and it was unwatchable.
it was. And you look at some of the name. I mean, it was the same thing that the Sixers did, where you made sure you had enough for a team.
Right.
It's the same thing that the Flyers are going to do this year, where you make sure you have enough for a team. I know they had an opening night win. I'm aware, but I'm not going to let that get false hopes. This team, that Flyers team is bad on paper, but this Phillies team finally made a bunch of moves to be competitive again. And I mean, I remember, even 2 years ago with Harper on the team and people saying, oh, well, he's going to want to opt out if they're not playoff contenders. No, he's not.
No.
Because now we're playoff contenders. Now you've added a Schwarber. Now you've added, even adding a guy like Noah Syndergaard, he is a competitor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a competitor who has played in big games. Now, I'm not crazy about him starting today, but, we'll see what that does.
Yeah, when I heard Rob Thompson post game yesterday, and I heard that, and I was like, yeah, okay. My hope is that it's an opener to maybe a guy like Falter who they can maybe trust to pitch a little bit longer. But I really think that they make a solid effort to kind of close this thing out today.
I think that if the fans show up, and again, they're going to. It's 9:30 in the morning. We're drinking Dunkin'. Those tailgates are already wide open.
Oh, I'm sure they're already rocking.
And it's a big weekend in Philadelphia sports to begin with. The Eagles are undefeated and playing the Cowboys at home. I'm going to be going to that game, so that's going to be interesting.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
Nice.
I am. And, it was supposed to be me and the wife. We can't get a babysitter, so I'm taking a British guy, so it's going to be hysterical.
Okay.
He's like, why are they using their hands? Because they don't have to.
It's called football.
He's just going to be wearing a Dicker jersey because he's, the kicker. And he's like, I know that part.
I love that. That's awesome.
But I think with the Phillies today, even having Noah Syndergaard being the starter, in reality, you do have Eflin in the bullpen.
Correct.
As a long-term reliever, not as a closer.
Correct.
Let me say that again. As a long-term reliever, not a closer.
Yes.
Because he does have the starter experience. I'm making a bold prediction here. I don't see a way that the Braves come back.
Yeah, listen, I think the key is going to be exactly the way that they won yesterday. Get on them early. And just, if you can get in a situation like you did yesterday where you can put up 6 runs and just run away and hide, I think there's a spot where you go from Syndergaard to Falter to Eflin to Alvarado. You can just go one guy down the line, and those guys, for all the troubles that they've had during the season, those guys have kind of figured it out, and they've kind of fell into their roles, right? Alvarado is a guy who got sent down earlier on in the year, but goes down and discovers a cutter that is now incredibly untouchable. I like the way that this thing could set up for them today, even with Syndergaard starting.
Yeah, and you look at the thing that helped. Yesterday you got a great performance out of your. I won't use it.
Say it.
Because he's not. You got a great outing out of one of your best starters.
Okay.
But again, you still had the same problem with Hoskins, and him booting the ball. But again, what does he do? He comes up then and obliterates a baseball, which is what, in all honesty, he's there for. And if you really look at the way this team was built, it was, especially in the outfield, it wasn't built for Harper to be the DH. Now it has worked.
Right. They made it work this year.
But it worked, but we always knew this team defensively wasn't where it should be. It was built so that Schwarber and Castellanos could play games as the DH. It was built so that you can put an Alec Bohm over it first and have Hoskins be the DH. This team is a bunch of mashers, but not necessarily the greatest bunch of fielders. And that's okay.
No, that's okay because you had Dombrowski build this team the way that it should have been built, which is you put a bunch of dudes in that lineup that are just going to continue to crush the ball. And you live with all the other stuff because, right, if you look at and listen, this is by no means a stat pod here, but if you look at Hoskins plus minus, right, he was +2.
Yeah.
He has the RBIs on the home run. And that moment that moment I think is going to be one of those like seminal moments that we remember just
Absolutely.
because of the time and the scenario and the situation. And that game literally just implodes on Strider in that moment where you take that 1-run lead to a 4-run lead, and then Harper comes, and all those runs happen within 4 pitches, and it just evaporates. And that game is essentially out of hand so quickly that they put themselves in a position where they have not overtaxed their bullpen at
No.
any point during any of these games between the Cardinals and Braves, which is huge. And you looked at the Braves yesterday, and the Braves essentially threw out a bullpen game thinking they were going to be able to steal one, right? And now they're going into an elimination game where their bullpen is taxed because they had to use a bunch of guys yesterday.
And I spent a lot of time thinking about, baseball and just sports in reality, the way that they were, right? And what always used to happen, especially in playoff series. So you have your 5 starters during the regular season. And then what ended up happening is you would drop down to 4 starters for the playoffs. Your ace would start game 1, then you would go 2, 3, 4, and then you would recycle and you would pitch on 3-4 days notice.
Right.
The fact that even we're trotting out Noah Syndergaard is concerning to me because he wasn't a starter really during the season. He was here and there, but he was a lot of bullpen spots.
A
Why
lot.
not?
Towards the special
Is Ranger Suarez not good on 4 days rest?
Yeah, I'm hesitant.
And what are you setting up for a potential game 5? Who's pitching game 5? If there is one. Because it's got to be Wheeler.
Well, yeah, it's got to be an all hands on deck kind of thing. And I think you start game 5 with Wheeler in Atlanta, and then you just say
You got to go.
It's win or go home. So it's
it's funny. Like I look at the fact that the Braves started Strider, and I know during the regular season he was dominant. Right? I know during the regular season he was dominant. And even during that first inning yesterday, he was dominant. But he's coming off this injury. You don't know what he has. And you saw his velocity drop from between the first and the second inning. Yeah. That was a calculated choice that was a mistake. And I think if you go back after this series is over and the Phillies do end up winning, that's the one move that you call into question.
I think so. I think you had an opportunity. You could have thrown Charlie Morton here, right? And gotten that starter. And not that Charlie Morton is like Justin Verlander, but
you know what he is.
But he's also a credible, reliable starter. So,
and he's pitched in this position before. You put a rookie in the middle of Philadelphia
who's coming off
with 11 years of pent-up frustration, coming off of an injury.
Yep.
What were you expecting to happen? Again, and the first inning, he did incredible. Even the second inning, it was pretty good. He went 6 up, 6 down. And then you saw the exhaustion kick in because he hasn't pitched in months.
Yeah, and it's almost like they thought like they saw this as an opportunity to kind of stretch Strider out for the anticipation that they would be able to use him in another series.
But they said though, he's on a 50-pitch count limit.
Right.
50 pitches is like 2 innings.
Yeah, I think they were thinking if I were Atlanta and you had you had him in that position yesterday where he was as dominant as he was, I would have brought someone in the 3rd inning. Like start the 3rd inning clean with someone new. You get out of there completely unscathed. He threw what? Like I'm don't quote me on this, but like 30-ish pitches before that, by the end of the 2nd inning. I think they like you said, they made a very calculated move, but it just blew up in their face because it literally went from you get the walk from Marsh, right? The throwing error where he ends up going to 3rd. Mm-hmm. Stott has the double, and then they walk Schwarber, and then you get the Hoskins home run, and then JT gets on, and then Harper has the home run, and
Strider threw 52 pitches. He threw 52 pitches
total. Okay, so in 2 plus innings,
two and a third,
yeah. If I'm Atlanta, I'm questioning that move because I'm questioning the fact that I put my entire season on the back of a rookie who has been impressive, but a rookie who's coming off an injury in a hostile environment.
He definitely has. But again, the issue comes into, does he have that ability to pitch in that situation? There were so many question marks around whether or not he was going to rise up to that moment. There were so many issues, so many questions. Yeah. And they just went, no, he'll be fine. And it's almost that level of cockiness that, like, the Braves, they had our number this season, right? We know that. The Braves had our number this season. And I think when we pulled the Braves after we beat the Cardinals and knocked off the Cardinals,
right,
I think there was a level of cockiness that came with this team, which good on them. They're the world champs until they're not. But we're sitting here with one game left into the National League Championship Series where we're going to face a very tough Dodgers team.
Hey, listen, don't count out the Padres, man.
But what you just did is exactly the right mentality. You just said, don't count out the team that's the underdog. And that's how the Phillies are playing this. Like, go ahead, count us out. No. It gives me very Eagles vibes.
No, I'm looking at that going, either one of those teams is going to be a formidable. And listen, when you get to the last four teams, there is no easy out.
No,
nobody is getting to be one of the last four teams playing in any playoff scenario in any sport where it's going to be a cupcake, unless there is like a serious string of injuries that derails everything. So, listen, I love the short-term mentality of saying, like, what I heard last night in the postgame, right? This was great, but we got to go out and win tomorrow, and we got to put it away.
Yeah.
So, and I think taking that mentality game by game is going to be a huge thing for this team. And you're also seeing like the short-term memory, right? It would have been very easy for Hoskins and Schwarber to kind of crawl into a hole, being 1 for 34 in the playoffs before they came into the game last night, right? But Schwarber gets on base 3 times, works a couple walks. He gets the intentional walk at one point, and Hoskins has a couple of fielding blunders between the last game that he the play that opens up the floodgates in Atlanta, and then the couple of fielding errors that he has in this game, and still comes back and is still able that goldfish mentality of like just turning the page and being able.
You have to, and I have a lot of respect for Zach Wheeler, but for him to go, no, I missed a pitch there, like. That's not on him. Now, we all know that I don't want to say routine ground ball because I play first base, right? I play first base anytime I'm on a baseball field. And that's a hot shot. That is the equivalent of a screamer down the third baseline. I get it. But you got to put your body in front of it. It is Correct. The playoffs. And when you already have a lot of question marks around your defensive prowess, that's a concern. And for his bat to also not have woken up, for Schwarber to not be really hitting. I looked at the box score after the game yesterday, and the only person who really didn't hit was Alec Bohm. But he's been hitting. Segura walked twice, so I'll give him a successful day. He didn't actually have an official hit. But Alec Bohm didn't really hit, and eventually, just like we saw when the Phillies won the World Series back in the day,
right?
You saw those late inning defensive replacements for Pat Burrell.
Correct. Yeah, and you saw that last night with Schwarber.
And you saw it with Schwarber. You see it with Bohm. Sosa is the better defender. When a lot of the time, if Marsh doesn't start, he's going in the game as a defensive replacement. You're putting Veerling in as a defensive replacement. But you need to take those first couple innings. While the environment is still electric, you have to take those first couple innings and absolutely hammer this team. You have to absolutely hammer this team. That third inning going up 6-0, you watch the Braves fold.
Correct.
And it also gave you the opportunity to take Nola out after the 6th at just 90 pitches. He's still pretty fresh. I would not be surprised. Wheeler has the extra day's rest, but he threw more pitches, I feel. And I'm pretty sure like one of the two of them will at least be available for Game 5. If needed. But it shouldn't be.
And if you remember the game that he pitched in the Cardinal series, same kind of thing. His pitch count was really low.
He was efficient.
For this time of the year, this is exactly where you want to be. Your pitching staff, your starting pitching staff is not overtaxed. They've been very efficient in managing the game. They haven't had to overuse their bullpen. They're getting production throughout their lineup. I really like where this team is really hitting its stride at the absolute right moment. I'm loving where this team is going into this game today and the mentality that they're going in, because there was a lot of talk about flipping the lineup and switching things around. And I think at this point in the season, you have to trust that the guy that's at the top of your lineup that's struggling, that also had the insanely productive home run season that he had,
Right,
is going to turn it around.
I mean, look, you know what you're going to get with Schwarber. You're either getting a home run or an out.
Correct.
And honestly, you're either getting a home run or a strikeout. I mean, that is what Schwarber gives you. Now, again, looking at the way that the lineups used to be made, you had a guy who could make contact and get on base, and then steal in your top spot. Your number 2 hitter was always your contact guy who may not have the greatest batting average, but he always hit the ball. That's how lineups used to be made. That is not baseball in 2022, or at least it's not in Philadelphia. And I was the biggest guy banging the drum for Rob Thompson taking that interim tag off.
Right.
And I also feel that as soon as they did that, this Phillies team went, okay, we have consistency at manager. Our 2 aces are dealing. Our ace and a half are dealing. People are starting to hit.
Right.
I mean, look, I can't consider Aaron Nola, and I'll just settle this on here. I can't consider Aaron Nola an ace until he wins in November.
Okay. Fair enough. Listen, here's what I'll say. September, Aaron Nola, and then October, Aaron Nola.
Right. But I mean, being 11 and 13 on the regular season, 11 and 13 on the regular season is not ace-like. Spencer Strider was 10 and 4. That's ace-like.
Yeah, that's ace-ish, right? That's ascending in that spot where
Correct.
I think if he continues to have the postseason that he's having, and this extends into the NLCS and into and further, it's worth at that point possibly revisiting that conversation.
Right. And again, for me, you do need to have the consistency. So we know that like Aaron Nola had that incredible season. And since then he hasn't really had those. Like he's been good, but he has not been dominant by any means. This Aaron Nola, he seems to be now kind of feeling himself a little bit, feeling a little bit confident. I'm here for that. I am absolutely here for that. Come out and deal. Today, though, with Syndergaard on the mound, with the bullpen being relied on heavily, they got to come out and mash. They have to come out and put up a 1 or a 2 spot in the first inning.
You got to pick up right where you left off yesterday.
Yeah, I think of the scene from Remember the Titans. Herman, leave no doubt.
Remember, let them never forget the night.
Yeah,
that they played.
Like, I want to see
the Fightins.
Them absolutely smack this team around, and then we all celebrate tonight, all night before we have literally 24 hours to go. And and they're throwing Charlie Morton today. The Braves are throwing Charlie Morton, who has pitched in big games. No,
he has pitched in big games, but there's also a lot of statistical information that would suggest that the guys that are hitting in this lineup lean more towards them being successful today. So I like the matchup for the players that are going to be in the lineup today against Charlie Morton, which is why I liked him yesterday, because I thought Charlie Morton was the guy that was going to go yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, do they make the right things? Like, I ended up listening to that third inning on the radio because I had to drive to my kid's baseball game, and of course I was coaching, so I had like my phone in my pocket. I was listening to the whole game. It was great. But like, you hear like the aggressiveness in this team. So when Marsh is stealing second on the pickoff attempt that goes all over the place,
right?
And then he's like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go take third as well.
Yeah, you could see that he made that decision. Like,
he made that decision, and he probably shouldn't have. And like, cool that he did. But that one split decision, could have been the difference of that inning that we had and the inning that we almost had.
Correct. Yeah, very true. I mean, you could say the same thing about the game 2 in Atlanta, right? That play by Hoskins. He makes that play.
Hoskins comes over that ground ball. We win that game.
That inning's over. Maybe that inning ends. Yeah, that inning ends on that play instead of Atlanta putting up a bunch of a pile of runs. I think you saw in that moment, right? That's playoff baseball, right? That one play, that one decision changes the entire scope and sequence of the game.
Right. I feel good about this game today. I think that it's not a Friday afternoon. It's a Saturday. They're going to have had a chance to tailgate, so I'm giving a lot of credit to the fans. I think that you have enough leaders in this dugout, in this clubhouse, that are going to go, look, we got to end this today. We don't want to get on a plane back there because everything that we did in Philly, now the Braves know that they're up against it. I want to end it today. I want to leave no doubt.
Listen, I'm with you. Right before we roll out, Chip, we had a call yesterday from the Broad Street line.
Let's hear it.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of. This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.
So, Chip, you may recognize this is a familiar voice for those of us that are doing these shows.
Yeah, this is Joe, Richie, Don. What a win by the Phillies. One game away from knocking out the World Series champs, the Braves. We're talking about the Fightins. Go Phillies!
That's our boy Adam, friend of the show.
Yes, it is.
And listen, we got if there were ever a way to kind of send us out, Rich, or force of habit.
What are you talking about, right? What are you talking about?
Who's all right? So for the Eagles, we normally do like a key play,
Yeah.
and a prediction. So what's your key play? What's a prediction for today?
For the Phillies. I think Harper homers in his second at bat.
Okay.
I think Harper homers in his second at bat. I think they're going to, Morton will go through the lineup pretty decently. We'll get a couple runners on here and there, but I think Harper homers in the second at bat. And I think that the overall final score is going to be 7-4 Phils.
Ooh.
I think they close it out today.
So, and I think at some point, I don't know who, but I think there's another scenario where they go back to back. I think they go back to back home runs at some point during the game, and whatever it is, it separates the two teams at that point, and the Phillies kind of pull away. And I was thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of where I was thinking 7-3, and I think they close it out. I think they do what they need to do, and then they sit back and they wait for whoever they're going to play on the West Coast.
Yeah, and then they all party at the Eagles tomorrow night when the Eagles go 6-0.
Yeah, did you see Sirianni was there last night?
I did. So he's like, we're kind of cool. I got tickets, and they're like, I think we can make that happen. I'm feeling like we can make that happen.
Pretty sure we can find a spot for you.
Yeah. Side little update, and I don't want to sound too surprised when I say this, but Carson Wentz has a fractured finger on his throwing hand. He's going to a hand specialist in Los Angeles to determine his next step, and his availability moving forward is up in the air. I am so surprised. I don't know who could have predicted this information.
Listen, I'll be the first one to admit I was on the opposite end of this one at the beginning. I thought that it was Pei Kong. I thought that it was a bunch of stuff, and I was wrong.
It's him.
It was bad. But Chip, at some point, I'm going to have to send you our very first call to the Broad Street line was somebody telling us about the Carson Wentz revenge tour. And it happened about a half hour into the game in week 1. And it's not worth listening to, but it is, because it's such a flaming hot turd that you can tell that it was said. I can't tell the validity of when of the content, because it seemed like it was like saying it in a way to say something so outlandish just to be maybe the one person that was right. But not surprising. Not surprising at all.
Bad takes exposed.
And Ron Rivera's reaction during his midweek press conference when he was asking what the difference is between
the 4 NFC East teams, quarterback.
The quarterback.
You just said Daniel Jones is better than your guy.
Yeah, and that's oh, brother. Well, this was fun, man. Saturday morning, little coffee and some baseball. You got anything on the menu today?
We are going to watch a Phillies game, and then we're going to go to Dorney Park tonight and
Nice.
do a little spook fest.
Ooh, okay. All right. Okay, before we head out, favorite Halloween movie?
So I don't do horror movies. So let me just take that right off the board.
Okay,
I don't do horror movies. I'm a middle school teacher. I live a horror movie. I seen it. If you think it's scary, I seen it. I mean, I like the Hocus Pocuses. They're fun. They're adorable. I mean, I don't really have necessarily a Halloween movie that I crave. But if they're on, I'll watch them. I mean, I'm a big Harry Potter guy, so there's Halloween scenes in most of those. So there you go. I'm going to say Harry Potter. Harry Potter.
All right. I like the Hotel Transylvania series.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, you can tell we're dads. Hold on, wait. Put Jason's last comment up. Hold on. Jason and I have this debate frequently, and you got to listen. Yeah, and he's already calling me out. We have to have a round 3 show. It all depends on, does he win in November?
Yeah.
If he wins in November, he is acting more ace-like.
Yep. Truly. Yeah.
Right now we have an ace and a half in Wheeler and Nola.
Listen. If we're in a position to be able to have that debate, that means we're in a good spot.
I feel the same way. Yep.
So, on that note, Chip, we're out.
Toodles.
Hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby.
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the Fightins here. The Fightins. Said.
Should